Hey everyone, I am here in the kitchen and true to my goal of documenting my journey of rediscovery, I am making a video, unscripted. I might get better at that. Maybe that'll be one of the goals. I have, for the last several years, every year I go through and I focus on 9 different categories of life that I can improve and that I can grow within. And every year I sit down about this time around September, and I make my goals and I just kind of like put them together and decide what am I going to aim to be and who am I going to become in these 9 different areas of life. Now, I might have to reference my list at some point. I really need to get my computer out, which I'll probably do after I create the goals, and share what exactly the 9 categories are. Because I need it in front of me to be able to recite, But they're 9 areas of growth, including things like spirituality, God, would be 1, relationships, parenting, finances, money management, business, like myself as a professional. What else? I have one that's called environment, and that's like, what will I do within my environment? So that would be like gardening goals or the chickens or whatever. And then I have one for fun. How am I gonna have fun? I have one for friendships. So there's different goals kind of like that I have built up over the years. I want to say whenever I very first started this, I had 5 categories, and now I have 9. Because it just made sense to be a little bit more intentional about defining it. So what I do is every year I open up last year's goals and then I go through it intentionally, and I read through them. I celebrate in my heart what, and I just kind of take time to think about, like, what did I accomplish? What did I not accomplish? Which goals do I still want to pursue? And which goals do I want to let go of? Like, sometimes I get into it and I realize I actually don't think I even want to pursue these goals. I might have tried and got into something and realized, like, nope, not for me. I don't want to become a millionaire, Who wants to do that? So those are some of the things that I will do as I am reviewing the goals. And then as I review them, I usually will create a duplicate of this document so that I can keep one, so I can kind of track over time how far. I'm not one to reread though. I'm pretty bad about that. But I'll reread from time to time, like what was my goal in 2017 and what was I hoping for myself back then, and then I make the new goals based on this process. And I always write a little prayer to God for these goals. And then I just ask him to give me an impression and give me a word for these things, or give me a blessing that, I can just write down, which is extremely subjective, and after the last several years, gosh, this thing is dense. This is heavy and it is dense. Look at that. So over the years, I have found those prayers and those blessings to be extremely encouraging to my heart. And it is important to me to continue doing it for myself. So there you have it. So I'm going to do this process and I want to document it. Not so much as a means to say, hey, everyone, do what I'm doing, but more so as a storytelling of hopefully inspiration, and kind of we're in it together. We're all working on our stuff. Your goals may be different than mine, but go after them, and don't give up just because you can't do it the first 14 times. And I feel like over the last few years, as I have gone from being a mom and a wife and, like I've become all of these things, the biggest takeaway and the biggest, component of all of that I have been left with is just sort of like, well, who am I? What am I about? And who do I want to become now that things feel as though they are starting to stabilize a little bit? So I guess, just to elaborate on that, I feel like when you become a mom and whenever you become a wife, it takes a lot of time to just like figure out who you are again. And I know for me, it took, and it is taking a lot of time to even just like get used to the practical side of things. Like, okay, I have a baby who's going to wake me up every night. Now I have two. I've got a husband who I need to consider whenever I make plans or whenever I spend our money or, there's red leaves on the trees. It is happening. Fall is coming. So just the practical side of those things and figuring out like the practical stuff is a big deal when you have spent your entire life. I think it's a big deal no matter who you are, but for a very stubborn, strong-willed person who already had a ton of systems that I thrived within, to reinvent all of those with another person, considering I've never really had to share in my life, like it was a big deal. And it wasn't easy. And I'm learning to share. I'm learning to be a team player. And it's taken like 3 years for me to kind of get to the point where I'm just okay at it. So I'd be very interested to hear what my husband has to say about all of this and my takeaway from it. But I feel like I am just okay at being married, and I feel like I'm pretty good at being a mom overall. But who doesn't have room for growth? And it all starts with defining who you want to be. I do not want my life to become me. I want to become the life I want. So that all starts with definitions and goals. And then I take those goals and I put them on my calendar, because every goal worth pursuing doesn't happen without intentionality. So some goals are kind of more subjective and internal, or they might, like, you might have a goal where it's like, okay, I had a goal. Here's a great example. When we got married, I realized I have anger problems, and I would just get so angry with my husband, and I would lash out at him, and I would react and just be really mean to him. And my goal once, and I would say still is, but I have made a lot of improvements, was to be nicer to my husband and to not be so angry. And it took me a long time to define, well, okay, how am I going to measure this? How am I going to pursue the growth within this area? Okay, so what I did was I started seeing a therapist. And the therapist, thank God, was versed in EMDR therapy, like tapping, which is really cool. It basically is a means to activate the left and right hemisphere of your brain while you are processing different memories and emotions. And as you do this, it activates your sympathetic nervous system. So it has a way of resetting your brain as you tap. This is all you do. And breathe. And with a therapist, you might be like, you might not be tapping yourself. They might have you hold these little nodes and they like vibrate like one at a time in your hand, because it's just about activating. And then some therapists will like do this and you're supposed to watch the finger and your eyes. You don't move your head, you just move your eyes. And as you process that, it activates the left and right, the eye movement activates the left and right hemisphere of your brain. And that causes a reset. And it helps you if you are stuck in an emotional state, or if you are stuck in a pattern of operating. It can help you to physiologically reset so that you can go from reactive to responsive. And that is the goal, because you want to be in control over your behavior and over your reactions and your responses. So you don't want to be reactive, is the point. You want to be someone who is deliberate. And that way, when my husband is sitting on the couch eating chips and I can hear him eating the chips, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to yell and I'm not going to be mean, even though this is driving me bat crazy. I'm just going to say, hey. And sometimes I've got to the point where I don't say a damn thing. But if I do say anything, I might just say, and I think about my tone, and I'll say, hey, would you, look at me, I look like a crazy person. Would you please put the chips in a bowl so that I don't have to hear that bag? Would you mind putting your chips in a bowl? And he might say, no, I'm not going to. And I'll be like, okay, would you please stop eating with your mouth open? Because I can hear you eating, I can hear you crunching. And that has been how we have handled it so far. And I'm going to get better and better at it. Like maybe one day I won't say anything, and I don't really know. Maybe that's a good goal. Maybe it's not. I'm a firm believer that there is a give and a take in every successful relationship. And to be honest, with this whole eating thing, I want to be the kind of person who is unfazed by other people's eating. I would love to be freed from that. Because some people are like, oh, well, that's his problem. He needs to just like take care of it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm one of those people. But that's not a successful mentality to have if you want a happy marriage. And if you want peace in your life and in your home, there are some battles worth fighting for. Absolutely. But there are some battles that you need to fight within yourself for, so that you can have peace and so that you can have a successful marriage that isn't all about you. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of wife I want to be. I want to be the kind of wife that grows into peace and that grows into being intentional. So HelloFresh just gave me 1 corn of cob for 2 people, for actually 4 people technically, but who's counting? Not them. So, you know, I don't want to be petty. I want to stand my ground for the right reasons and for things that actually matter. And that really eliminates a lot of conflict the more I learn how to do that. So, once I put all of my goals in my calendar, then the choice is to walk it out. You gotta just kind of try your best and get out there and make it happen, and then reevaluate every few weeks. This year, I am doing something totally different. What is it? Thank you for asking. I am going to be using ChatGPT as my coach. Now, I have paid for life coaching several times in my life, and I'm a big fan of it. And I don't want to diminish anyone because I do think people have a discernment and a wisdom and a soul, whereas ChatGPT doesn't. But when you're only looking at the practical side of growth and coaching, ChatGPT does a pretty good job. So I am going to let it do a good job, and I'm going to let it coach me through my Rediscovering Me season. Some of my bigger goals that are just like burning on my heart off the top of my head are to get my basement organized. I would love to be able to lose maybe 80 pounds. And I don't know how fast I can do that breastfeeding, but one of the first things I am going to do is stop saying that I cannot lose weight while breastfeeding. Because I'm not convinced that is the truth. I don't know if I got all the ingredients to this. It's hiding on the back of this bag. So yeah, I want to be really intentional about examining what I am telling myself and how those beliefs ultimately stack up to facilitate progress or to hinder it. One of the things I have said to myself specifically about my weight loss is I do not know if I can lose weight while breastfeeding because of my hormones. And this is something a lot of women say, and I think there could be some truth to it, but I also think I don't want that to be my excuse for not doing what I know I need to do to have the results that I want. And I don't think it's going to hurt if I am eating healthy and clean and eating enough and working out. Like, how could those things actually hurt? You know what I'm saying? Plus, I'm an overproducer, thank God, and I am gifted with a ton of extra milk, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I don't rely upon needing that milk, you know? So it's a good place to be for this particular goal, because if I lose some of it, it's not the end of the world, because I make like twice what I need, and I'm running out of freezer space. My goal though, my baby is 5 months old, and I would love to be able to breastfeed him, I mean, till I get pregnant again, or until he's like 1.5 to 2. My daughter weaned me when she was about 1 year and 2 or 3 months. She just decided she didn't want any more boobies, and it's not a good grinder. I asked for a grinder, and we didn't go to Sam's. They have these really nice grinders, and the top is a square, so it's easy to grip. This is a circle, and the grip, this is a lot bigger of a grip. This one's like a two finger grip. This one's like a 3-finger grip. So I want this and this alone, and I will keep these as my backups for when I run out of the one that I really want. It's hard to do, and it's very distracting to me because I'm trying to talk. So anyway, all the tangents, right? I want to be a breastfeeder, and I want to be a skinny ass bitch with, like, I want my head to look like just a head on a stick of a body with a big butt, because mama got that, and I always will, no matter how thin I get. I'm a curvy girl, and I'm not sorry. So I want to keep my butt and lose 80 pounds, and mostly just be able to bend over, without cracking. My body feels old and my body feels tired. So I need to address this before it addresses me. I'm trying to get ahead of it, Plus I want 2 more pregnancies, and they will only be better and easier if I can take care of myself. Some other goals we have are finishing our chicken coop. We have all but finished the roof. And a year ago, you can see it right there. A year ago, we built the chicken coop and we never put the roof on. And so I want to do that. My husband has a cigar lounge that is all like, he's built it from scratch. And it's all framed out, but we need to put in like the insulation in the walls and well, he has insulation and he used it all winter, but it needs walls and it needs floors and decorations. And so I want to complete that and get it done with. So there are projects kind of like that, and I want to get these done probably more than some of my other personal goals at this point in my life, because I really want it to be completed by the time that we get pregnant again, and we're already trying. Once I get pregnant, I have a feeling I'm going to be exhausted like all the time. So those are some of my goals. I also would like to focus on homeschooling, which is so funny to me because I do not believe at this point, and maybe my first goal should be changing my belief system, but I do not believe that I have the discipline or the wherewithal or the experience or the fortitude to homeschool anyone, especially my kids, who are the most important thing in my life. Like, I'm like, how can I even do this without messing it up? But that's what all these homeschool moms say, so who knows? Maybe I'm like the best homeschooling mom. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to know, but I'm gonna try. So my 2-year-old is pretty smart and she likes learning, and so just for fun, I thought we would like start learning numbers and stuff. And then I just want to have a happy marriage, and I want like things to stabilize. We've had constant changes over the last few years, and I am ready for some stability while continuing to grow our family. I predict, and moms of 3, tell me what this was like for you. I was a nanny for 3 rambunctious little boys, all under 5, and I had the time of my life with them. Like, I loved it. And so I'm very familiar with the vibe of a family of 5. And I feel confident about that. And I feel like I've got the parenting down. I know how to have a baby. Like, I know how to give birth. I know how to recover well. And I'm good at babies. I'm getting good at toddlers. So I feel like the 3rd is going to be an easy transition for us overall. But I think my biggest challenge when we have a 3rd is going to be managing the home and everything, in addition to having another baby. So when I'm making some of these goals, I want to be intentional about how am I growing my capacity and creating stability within my capacity around the house and within my role here, and my ability to give attention to my kids in a way that is expanding and solidifying what I've already got, so that when we have a 3rd child, the transition is as smooth as possible. And there will always be like a need to grow. Sorry, my boobs are kind of hurting. But there will always be a need to grow. And I think that there are ways that you can prepare for that growth and for those seasons that you are going to have like some lessons to learn. there are things that you can do to make it a lot easier. And so that's kind of the stage that I'm in. I want the stability, but I also really want to do it in a way that, like, I know that our lives are going to change at least one or two more times over the next few years before we are done with this stage of like creating people. And then once we're done with that, I think there will be a second redefinition of myself and our family once we know that we're not having any more kids. Hey, I'm here. So that's kind of the plan. And in my next video, I will make a video discussing all of the goals that I'm pursuing and what that looks like. I might make one or two in between talking about my garden. So I'm gonna go feed my baby now.